Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the AI in Research, Shaping the Future panel discussion. My name is Marcela, and I'm a lecturer in data science and optimization at the University of Newcastle here in Australia. And I am the moderator of today's panel discussion. Some housekeeping rules before we start. So this event is being recorded. Our recordings are available on YouTube. Please mute yourself when you're not speaking. You can use the chat. Please use the chat to introduce yourself, which country you are from. We love learning where our participants are from. You can also use the chat to send us your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end. So please pop your question in the chat and tell us how we did in the survey at the end of the event. We really value your feedback. It's really helpful for us. So we will pop the link in the chat, the link to the survey, when it's time for you to answer the survey. In case you're wondering what to expect in today's event, here's just the structure of this event. So first we are having this opening and welcoming. Then I'm going to introduce the panelists. After that, we are going to have a panel discussion of about 40 minutes. This will be followed by a Q&A, a short Q&A of 10 minutes. And we are going to wrap this event up with some closing remarks. So first things first, let me start with acknowledging country. So acknowledgement of country, for those of you who are not from Australia, this is a common practice here in Australia. And as we gather to discuss the transformative power of AI in research, let us recognize the rich history of innovation, knowledge and culture that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples have contributed to Australia's society. Just as AI represents a step forward in how we understand and interact with the world, so too can we learn from the enduring wisdom and resilience of the First Nations peoples. In case you don't know, this panel discussion is the Women's Research Engineers Network's celebration of the Artificial Intelligence Appreciation Day, which is July the 16th. And so I'm going to briefly talk about this initiative. The Women's Research Engineers Network, or the WREN, it's a global initiative that promotes international collaboration and supports the career advancement of minority groups, such as women researchers in male-dominated areas such as engineering. So WREN, the network, has delivered many events since its establishment in 2022. So from academic writing, career development, workshops, and networking events to our annual symposiums. Our annual symposium brings together researchers from different career levels around the world to share their work and collaborate towards a sustainable future. All of our events are free. I'm a little biased to say this because I'm a member of the WREN's committee, but the network has done amazing things. And if you feel that what we do resonates with you, you can join our network. It is free. So we are going to pop the link, our website in the chat. So it's free, so you can become a member. It's free, and you know firsthand about the events that we are going to we organize, and you can also have your work are featured in one of our monthly newsletter. We know that academics, we have to promote our research and ourselves, and sometimes it's a pain to do that. We struggle with that because we are not really trained to do that. And one thing that we do, the network, is to promote the work of our members in our newsletter. So visit our website for more information to join the network. Just before I introduce our panelists, so if you have followed us, you know that we love a screenshot with the faces of our attendees. So now it's time to take a picture of all of you. So I'm gonna stop sharing my slides. And I'm gonna ask you to please turn on your cameras so we can take a really nice picture. So put up your best smile. And I'm gonna ask Eva to take a picture of us. And yes, should I count down? Let's wait some time.
Okay, let's start the video for a moment. Smile for the first page. And then we're gonna start with the second pages. Let's wait for another. Okay, then, thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Let me share my slides again. And now I'd like to introduce our panelists. So Dr. Ashley Choo, she's currently an associate professor at the Faculty of Arts and Sciences at the University Malaya-Wales, Malaysia. So Dr. Ashley's research interests are artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, data mining, and high-dimensional data analysis. She holds several registered intellectual properties, including patents and copyrights of her research innovation. She has conducted short-term upskilling courses for vocational training institution teachers in Southeast Asia countries. Dr. Ashley, thank you for joining us today. Our second panelist is Dr. Roba Abbas, who is a senior lecturer of operations, systems, and digital transformation in the Faculty of Business and Law at the University of Wollongong, Australia. Roba is the chair of the Technical Activities Executive Committee of the IEEE, and previously the co-editor-in-chief and co-editor of the IEEE Transactions on Technology and Society and associate editor of the IEEE Technology and Society magazine. Since 2006, she has been researching socio-technical ecosystems, emphasizing interdisciplinary co-design and co-complex systems dynamics at the intersection of society, technology, ethics, and regulation. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Roba. And our last panelist is Dr. Lili Wulandhari, who is a data scientist and computer science lecturer at the Bina Nusantara University in Indonesia with expertise in machine learning, data science, and text mining. With over 10 years of academic experience, Lili has also worked as a professional data scientist, applying AI and machine learning across various domains, including text, images, and financial data. Thanks for being here with us, Dr. Lili. We've got very well-versed panelists. And I've got some questions here to prompt the discussion. So I'm going to stop sharing my slides. And here's my first question. So I would like to ask each one of you to briefly describe how you have incorporated generative AI into your research and what specific applications have you found most beneficial. So who wants to start? I can pick someone. So Dr. Ashley, if you can start.
Thank you, Dr. Stella.
That's all right.
I am conducting the research, okay, using generative AI in natural language processing, particularly in developing a system for academic usage, like the student, especially for our final year students in Bachelor of Computer Science, they are searching for supervisors to supervise their final year project. So we have encountered the problem like assigning the correct expertise to guide the student. So by using the AI system, then the student just need to write a short description of their research, okay? And then the system will go through and capture the keywords and try to match with our experts. So they have a proper supervision and guidance for their final year project. Yeah, that is the most current research I'm conducting.
So Robert, do you want to share with us?
Sure,
How
Ms.
you
Marcella.
incorporated generative AI into your research?
Yeah, of course. Firstly, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. In terms of integrating generative AI in research, I do that in both the teaching and the research context. And as we know, there are many research benefits in terms of both augmentation and automation, but not without their risks. So given my emphasis on socio-technical systems design, I tend to use generative AI to assist with imagination, with forecasting, with future casting, so looking further ahead into the future to supplement specific tasks. So for instance, things such as scenario planning, so imagining future system states or modes of operation and trying to determine some of the corresponding risks and associated uncertainty and deciding how we might be able to go about mitigating some of those risks. Additionally, in things such as human-centered design in the preparatory phases, thinking about commonly held assumptions and trying to challenge those assumptions in a low-risk environment via the use of AI. And there are other application areas that perhaps we can talk more about around general research productivity tools and assisting with other facets of research.
And what in terms of those in that aspect to help you be more productive in terms of general research, what have you found the most beneficial in using generative AI?
Sure. So in testing various tools at UOW, we do have access to Copilot in various conversational modes. There's also your general ChatGPT for brainstorming, Otter AI and other tools for Zoom meetings and post-meeting follow-ups. Apart from the obvious tools, there are tools integrated in collaborative spaces, your Canva tools, your Padlets. The emphasis is always on how to responsibly and ethically use those. So for instance, to increase productivity or to be more efficient, might go about looking at compiling a list of special issues or conferences, but you need to be really specific and direct with the prompts, and you also need to consider how you're going to integrate some of values-based research and ethical guidelines and principles associated with that, and then translating that into something that can be readily published, because we know that publication outlets and houses have different guidelines and requirements and policies around the use of tools and declarations associated with that.
That's great. And Lili, how have you incorporated generative AI into your research?
Yeah, as a data scientist, that most of my works in data science, usually I use like using a generative AI for creating like a synthetic data. Is particularly useful dealing with limited amount of the data, and that's challenging to get new data from it. For example, when I work in the fraud detection, as we know that fraud data is quite not a lot, yeah, and it's difficult to find like a new data for the fraud detection. So we try to apply a model that we call as a generative adversarial networks, and we try to build a synthetic data from the original data that we have. But this is not as simple as that, that when we found a new data and not we directly to use it for our model, but we have to do like some of the analysis and also some of the evaluation to make sure that the synthetic data that we have, it's the same or have a good quality like the original data one. And the other one, the tools that very beneficial for my research currently, I found lately that in Google Collaboratory, the one that I always use for my research, behind that, there is a Gemini. So it's very easy for us. When we try to doing the long coding, we just write some part of the coding, and the Google Colab will give us the suggestion what the next coding for it. So it's very easy for us to work, especially when we work along coding. It's very beneficial for my research. So my research we can do it more faster. Yeah, we can do it faster than before because of this Gemini one.
Yeah. Yeah, great. And it was interesting because I think what a lot of people think when we say generative AI is ChatGPT, right? But we have a range of tools or software that we can use. The generative AI, and Roba mentioned Copilot, and it's just amazing what it can do. And talking, thinking about all of those tools, my next question would be related with creativity. And I think for many years ago, when we talked about when AI was talked about, a lot of people didn't really think that AI, generative AI, would help us with creativity. We thought like those day-to-day, many of things that we would need, we would use AI, but a lot of people didn't really think that we could use AI for creative things, and now we can use it. It is known for its ability to enhance creativity. So I wanted to ask if you could share examples of how generative AI has helped you or your team generate new ideas or approaches in your research. So I guess we can follow the same order. So Ashley, do you want to go again first?
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Oh, okay. Based on my personal experience, I came from the era where before the ChatGPT, the generative AI. So when I started to approach the research problem, normally I will interview with the site experts to get the industry, get to know what is happening in the industry, and then what is their problem, or I will refer to a lot of the most recent publication. But I find that generative AI like Copilot and ChatGPT has helped me to approach the research problem from different dimensions. Yeah. So I can see things from different angles, and then it really can stimulate a lot of the research questions. Yeah. And then I believe it can quicken the process of formulating the problem and in searching of the solution.
Definitely. Yeah. Yes. Roba?
Thanks, Marcella. I think complementary to that, I tend to approach the idea of creativity and Gen AI from the perspective of creativity as somewhat of a precursor for innovation. So I do a lot of digital innovation work, digital innovation projects, concepts that relate to how we design better systems from a human-centered approach. So in using Gen AI, it can be used as a support tool rather than necessarily the main source of an innovative idea. So maybe as a supporter, a catalyst, or a facilitator for human creativity. And that's really assisted in approaching the concept of creativity. As Dr. Ashley said, understanding how to ask better questions, how to derive problems, those perhaps that are data-driven or reveal patterns that might not be readily visible. I found that it can also accelerate certain phases of the innovation process, but that care in terms of careful or thoughtful consideration of the limitations of the AI outputs is really helpful from the perspective of creativity. So how do we think about risks and the ethical implications? So in terms of a tangible example, in the systems design space, it might be good to identify patterns, to abstract things and see how a full system might look like as a sort of creative application of Gen AI. And it can also provide insights regarding how an idea might be received by different user groups, but some aspects relating to creativity just can't be replicated. Things like critical thinking skills, and if we think about reflection, personal exchanges, but I'm sure we can discuss more of that in a moment.
Yeah, it's great, and I like what you said about, you know, not playing the main role, but rather like a really supportive tool. You know, you can have a dialogue with, if you're using ChatGPT, I'm thinking about ChatGPT, and you ask something and then it gives us insight, and then you can think and then ask again. I think, yeah, I really like that process. You know, it's like making you think deeper about something. Dr. So Lili, what about you?
Yeah, I do agree with Dr. Roba about and Dr. Marcella mentioned about that AI just for supporting that may play a main role for our research, especially, and our creativity. And I found that now, because we have generative AI, it's make us easy for example, when we start to found some idea in the research, like, okay, we always read some paper that just that area of the paper. By using generative AI, we can write some prompt, and then generative AI that Dr. Ashley mentioned before give our another perspective. And then, for example, when we try to find the literature review, generative AI will help us to give recommendation what kind of literature that we better read, and eliminating the one that not relevant for our research. So it will help us to find the new idea and the other perspective of our research by using this generative AI.
Yep. And I've got one question. It's a burning question, and this is a personal question, because I've been thinking a lot about this, and I guess other researchers as well, and other teachers as well, because when you supervise, you know, a HDI student, a PhD student, a master's student, you have to think about this. And my question is, do you think that some skills necessary for conducting research, for example, when you have to prepare a presentation, or when you have to prepare a pitch, you have to pitch out a research proposal. So do you think that those skills are going to be, won't be needed anymore? So that's a question that, yeah, it's kind of a personal question. So I guess we can change the order a little bit. So Lilia, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marcella. Yeah, I think currently as a researcher, we always think about our technical skills. And I think that generative AI facilitates numerous technical advancement in our research. However, there are still areas where our soft skill need further improvement where generative AI cannot support that. For example, in the context where we need to doing some presentation or sharing our idea about our research, as a researcher, we firm with our technical skill, but how we can share that knowledge, we share the idea for other people, especially the one that doesn't have background in our research. So what we need to improve in how we communicate it, because in my experience, usually when we know very good about technical, we also using a technical term to sharing our knowledge. And this is very difficult for the others to know what you share, what it means, because it's too technical. So the one that we need doing as a researcher, rather than of the technical skill where generative AI help us much, we're doing some soft skill like communication, or maybe like a teamwork, because generative AI help us much. So we think that we don't need our team because we can do it by ourselves. Usually it's like the ego that we have currently as a researcher. And yeah, that's the one that how we communicate it. So the research not only for us or not only for our team, but also will have a beneficial for the others, where they can understand what we do and what they can implement the part of the research for their field. Yeah, I think that's the one that we have to do.
Yeah, I agree that I think those social skills, learning how to work in teams, communicate, research, the generative AI won't help us much in those areas. So so Roba, what do you think?
I think that's a great question, first of all, Marcella. A really good one. And I second everything Dr. Lili mentioned about the need for communicating our research, communicating the technical facets of it, and so on. So I can see, again, similarly, the opportunities involved in enhancing productivity and automation of certain tasks. And I have thought along similar lines of you, Marcella, of how to communicate with PhD and other students around its benefit and the types of skills that we need to acquire. But I tend to think about things from the perspective of how Gen AI can augment, again, the existing skills, back to what we spoke about previously in terms of the support mechanisms, of course, with full declaration and full transparency around how we're utilizing it. But there will always be cases where a human need is required, or the human requirement is there, particularly in the examples that we've spoken about, where the human needs to be physically present to pitch an idea, for example, as Dr. communicate a particular concept or technical requirement, to meet with clients, to interact within certain contexts, perhaps to even clarify certain aspects of the proposal. So I don't think any of those tasks will become obsolete, because you need to be able to understand what it is you're pitching and what it is you're proposing. In terms of bringing that back to a particular field, let's say the systems, the socio-technical systems field, the human-centered socio-technical nature of these fields that are emerging relative to AI and becoming really important in thinking about the ethics of AI, there is always a requirement in those fields for that human skill, and that will remain relevant, I think, moving into the future.
Great, yes. So Ashley?
Thank you. I agree with Dr. Lili and also Dr. Roba previously mentioned that generative AI actually serve as a very good support system in research, in accelerating the research process. And I also perceive generative AI like Copilot ChatGPT as a very good research companion, because based on throughout the years of supervising a PhD student, they feedback to me, actually studying PhD and research work is a very lonely journey. So in that case, generative AI come into the picture as a very good research companion for brainstorming, stimulating idea. But somehow when it comes to defense session, and we still need to develop the soft skill for communication, and via the defense session pitching of ideas, at the same time, we also can get the constructive feedback from how other research fellow thought about our research. I think that is very crucial.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess one thing that is related with everything, with what Roba said and Lili said is, I guess, because if we are gonna use those tools as, you know, supportive tools, they are not gonna play the main role. We have to make sure that, you know, the next generation of researchers, they have those basic knowledge, basic skills. Because I've been thinking, I'm currently supervising a PhD student. She's visiting from another country, and in my area is really common to use LaTeX. Choo is a word editor software, and she wasn't really familiar with that, and I was trying to make sure that she learned how to use it. And then I realized that you can use ChatGPT to do that. You know, even if you have a document in Word, ChatGPT is going to convert it into LaTeX for you. And I thought to myself, why am, you know, making an effort, pushing her to learn this if it's not going to be needed anymore, because you can use ChatGPT. But then I'm able to do that. I'm able to use ChatGPT to convert this Word file into LaTeX because I have the basic skills to use LaTeX. So I think it's really needed. And I don't know the answer, but we have to make sure I don't know the answer how to do that, but we have to make sure that the next generation of workers and researchers, they do have those basic skills to be able to use those tools as you know, supportive tools, I guess. My next question is, because AI brings many possibilities, but also raises ethical questions, as you know, we have talked a little bit already. So how do you address ethical concerns related to AI in your research? So I guess I'm going to start with you, Roba, this time.
Sure, that's a great question. And I think I've already referenced ethics a few times. So I'll try to be as succinct as possible, as with any discussion of ethics. I think the first step is probably, if we're talking about it from a research perspective, let's start with that. You mentioned research and teaching. Research perspective is to stay on top of latest developments, both locally and internationally, with regards to ethics, to regulations, to societal implications. That includes, at a fundamental level, I think, awareness of institutional policies at one's institution, and the requirements with respect to AI, which they're continuously evolving. I mean, from one session to the next, in terms of teaching, you'll find that there are developments that we need to stay on top of and make sure we implement in the most responsible manner in the interest of our students and the broader academic or higher education community. In terms of just sort of bringing that back to research, we need to, I think, build skills that allow us to adapt to those changes that I spoke about in the environment, and being able to assess the relative risk and ethical implications as things evolve. And that's something that perhaps we underestimate, and we're trying to build that in, at least in our school and our faculty, on digital transformation subjects. How do we teach the process of learning in an evolving environment, and how to adapt to specific technologies? And as researchers, I think we need to do the same ourselves. Something from a practical perspective, as you were talking, Marcella, and as we were sort of thinking about this session, is about where the end goal is with some of our research in publishing outcomes. So being aware of publisher positions on the use of AI is also very important. They will differ from one publisher to the next. And that's part of that awareness of the environment around us. So, for instance, if you look at something I'm familiar with, the IEEE guidelines and their submission and peer review policies, they have a certain statement around guidelines for how artificial intelligence generated text can be used. Now, that differs slightly from the Elsevier guidelines, and we can unpack those if you wish. So that's what I'd say from probably a research perspective. There are other dimensions to it. In terms of teaching, the first point of action would be to defer to institutional policies on the use of AI. At present, I believe, at least in our institution, the onus is on the subject coordinator to implement that institutional perspective by indicating the extent to which AI can be used. For instance, in my subject that will run in the next few weeks, there is a clear statement that identifies how students can use AI and the ethical implications of that. But I think there is a process of communication and teaching around, this is the current state of play, this is what we're going to do about it, and this is what responsible use looks like if responsible use is allowed. In some cases, I know that some prefer to just prohibit the use of AI, but that can be quite dangerous in certain circumstances from a skills perspective.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I think that's not the way to go. I think we have to learn how to use the tools in a way that benefits us. Yeah, and yeah, help all students learn how to use them as well. But I do have a question about literacy. That's my last question, so I'm not gonna go there yet. Ashley, do you want to answer that one? So ethical questions, ethical issues in AI.
Oh, okay. From my perspective, actually, I do agree that nowadays the unlimited usage of AI and also very easy access to different type of generative AI tools, it does bring up the ethical issues. And as an educator, so I think we should set up a good role model, okay, and then equip ourselves with the skill of how to detect the real data, how to differentiate the real data from the synthetic data, and also to educate ourselves, okay, on how the generative AI work, so that we have the capability to identify, okay, our the students' work, whether they are coming from the generative AI, okay, or the student really put their effort to complete the assignment. So in short, actually, we as an educator, we should equip ourselves with this capability first. Then we set a role model for them.
Yeah, I guess you raise a really good point. So we have to understand how it works, because I guess some people don't really see it as, you know, it is unethical when we use it to, for example, write an assignment or write, you know, a report. Some people don't understand that it is unethical because it's not something new. You know, you're getting work from other people which is available out there. So I think it's important that everyone understand how those tools work, so we can, you know, see where the problem is. So Lili, what do you think? How do you address ethical concerns related to AI in your research?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Marcella. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Ashley and Dr. Roba, what they mentioned before. It's about the regulation, and also the one that I think important is the culture, the role model and the culture in our institution, because sometimes it's like a very thin boundary between this is allowed or not allowed, because usually for our student, where they are young, where they raise and growth in terms of the AI and all of the technology, sometimes they don't aware that that's this kind of, it's not allowed, this one is the allowed. So the one that we have to give them the one that we have to explain to them that, okay, the integrity, I mean that we cannot acknowledge that the one that the produce from the generative AI as our works. So the culture and the role model, I agree with the Dr. Ashley mentioned before, where we have to give them in the first place. For example, in the class, usually, yeah, for the assignment, when we prepare for the assignment, we don't prepare the assignment that they can easily solve it by using the generative AI. But we have to prepare the assignment or the question where they have to think first. And especially, I agree, they have to know the fundamental knowledge before they have to type the prompt in the generative AI. I mean that they cannot directly write our question in the generative AI and then they get the answer, but they have to think first. what kind of question is it is. They have to know, they have to break down the question based on their knowledge about that kind of the question. So yeah, that's the one that I try to do in my research and also in class. I think our work is not as easy as before because yeah, that kind of the preparation we have to do before we start in the research or before we start for the class.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's what I meant when I said that we have to, and also what Roba said, that we have to help them learn how to use those tools in their benefit. Yeah, we cannot say, oh, you're not supposed to use it, and that's not the way to go. Yeah, because those skills are gonna be really needed. And I guess that's a segue to my last question, because we do have a Q&A session. So it's about AI literacy, and my question is how can institutions support researchers and also students in becoming more AI literate, and what fundamental, and I guess this is related with what we discussed before, what fundamental knowledge should every researcher have about generative AI? And one thing that I saw on the news, and this professor, he mentioned that is the same situation now what we are facing with AI. It's similar when cars were invented. We need we need people who can build cars, so we need people who can build those tools. Most companies are gonna need those tools, but we also need to teach people how to use those tools, to drive those cars. So I guess it's the same. We have to help our students become literate in AI. So how do you think institutions can support researchers in becoming more AI literate? So I'm gonna start with you, Ashley.
Thank you, Dr. Marcella. First of all, the institute must set a clear guideline on AI usage. So we know what is the border, the researcher, in using the AI tools, how far we are allowed. And secondly, create the awareness, like first of all, how AI works, and also the accuracy and of the AI system. So how accurate if we use the synthetic data. Actually, a lot of the I should say, based on my experience, nowadays the student, they need to differentiate between the primary data, the secondary data, and the synthetic data. What's the difference? Okay, don't mix up the secondary data with the synthetic data. Okay, and then of course, I totally, absolutely agree to that by organizing the forum like today, it serves a very good educative purpose for people to understand, what is the generative AI can do and then cannot do for us. Yeah, and also we need to develop a skill to, as I mentioned just now, to differentiate. What is the genuinity of the data. And I strongly believe by using the genuine data, then we can solve the problem. Okay, we can solve the problem effectively. So that is my point for the AI literate. Okay.
Thank you. Robert, anything to add? How do you think institutions should support researchers in becoming more AI literate?
I think very similar to what Dr. Ashley had mentioned. I think facilitating the training and support around foundational knowledge of AI, for example, what AI is, but also what AI is not. So what it can achieve and its limitations are both equally important. At a minimum, I think demystifying the concept of AI as a technical concept, given its broad reach across institutions and in the broader institutional ecosystem. Additionally, I think if we can unpack some of the concepts to allow us to easily understand AI, so what AI is, what machine learning is, how we think about generative AI as a subset, and the difference between those concepts, so we can practically navigate the environment around us. Back to your question and what you discussed previously, Marcella, AI literacy. How do we build AI literacy not in isolation, but as part of a broader digital literacy program, because we are still working with other technologies and need to be digitally literate. There's also another concept which I think is very interesting beyond literacy, which is that of fluency. So beyond the operational scenarios, how do we become fluent in the use of AI, or at least in our understanding of AI, so that we can access a creative capability, again, beyond those operational scenarios. So not just thinking, how do I use this in this context, but how do I be strategic and creative and ethical in my use? There's also the skills relative to AI, so skills such as critical thinking skills, responsible innovation and design, responsible application. We need to build that readiness, I think, institutionally speaking, and teach specifically about responsible AI. And something that I think is really interesting is beyond the researchers themselves, broadening our scope to look at our professional and administrative staff and offering the necessary support and training that they require as they support us and support the institution, depending on their work context, because that does differ. Again, it would just entail, Marcella, I think, thinking about the entire research and higher education ecosystem, rather than having an isolated view of just AI literacy. Beyond that, what does digital literacy mean given an evolving AI landscape?
I love that idea of fluency. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So Lili?
Yeah, I so agree with Dr. Roba about responsible AI. So how we use AI with responsibility. And also the one that we also for the AI literacy is we give the explanation, especially from the one that not from the technical or engineering background, where they usually using AI but doesn't know how AI works. Sometimes they think that AI is like a magic, the one that they put and they produce something. It's like a magic. But when we explain to them that how it's AI works, that AI not always true, but the one that the output of that, so they can understand. And yeah, for the responsibility, responsible AI using for this one. And also for the institution, I think it's very good if the institution can initiate the collaboration in the research, especially for the one in the engineering background and the one that from the maybe non-engineering, where usually they doesn't know how to implement AI in their field. So I think it's very beneficial. So AI not just implement in one field of the knowledge, but also can be implemented in wider. For example, maybe in arts or in the law or in the business, where without initiation from the institution, sometimes they doesn't know how to start for using AI in the research field. Yeah, I think that's for the additional from the Dr. Roba and Dr. Ashley.
Thank you. Yes, I'm aware of time, so I guess we have time for perhaps 2 questions. Okay, so we've got one here. So do you think AI will have negative impacts on our brains, decrease cognitive issues and critical thinking skills? Who wants to answer that one?
Maybe.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay. Oh, I think like just now Dr. Roba mentioned about a generative AI or AI tools can serve as a very good support system. But to develop the critical thinking skill, I believe, okay, still we need to read a lot, listen a lot, and asking a lot of different questions. But we can use the generative AI tools to help us to perceive the problem from different angles so that it can change the way we ask questions.
That's a good one. Roba, Lili, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, maybe the one that to complete the Dr. Ashley mentioned, that when we using generative AI with knowledge, so we can get the output, the desired output, that more effective and more efficient. Without that knowledge, the answer also is like too general and not answer the question that we want actually. So yeah, the basic knowledge will give like the basic how we can using generative AI efficiently and effectively.
Yes, second that. So next one, from Emily, could too much regulation on the use of generative AI backfire on us? That's a good one. Anyone want to take that one?
Okay, sorry. Can I rephrase the question? Like, too much of generative AI is
regulation, too much regulation on
okay.
the use. Yes, I think we need regulation. So the question is, too much regulation on the use of generative AI backfire on us? So could it be a problem, too much regulation?
I think that regulation still tie back to how the institution or the organization, how they define, or whether they set a clear guideline on the AI usage. Okay, so something must be in between, not too much or not too little. Too little then can cause the abuse, and too much of the restriction can limit the creativity. So there must be something in the middle.
Find a balance. Yeah. I
So
agree.
the one that the build the regulation should be the one that understand the AI also, right?
Yep. I think we can take one more. Sorry. Sorry everyone, we got time constraint. Let me see what so I believe good attention, for instance. What is in it? Okay, let me where is the other one? Okay. Research, I'm going in the order. So first, second. So research aims to finding novel knowledge, whereas AI is a tool for aggregating existing data. Would AI end up hindering new and novel ideas? Who wants to answer this one?
Shall I jump in there, Marcella?
Would
AI hinder novel ideas? I think it goes back to what we discussed around creativity as a precursor for innovation. I think the ideas need to be there as a precursor to that innovative process, and we can use AI as that support tool. I think it also relates to that regulation question. I was a bit hesitant to jump in with regulation because it's so broad. How we regulate technology in general has been a question that has been much studied, right? So do we restrict use, and how do we regulate various facets of the technology while also not inhibiting technological progression? That relates to, I think, everything that we're discussing today, because sometimes we can view regulation as restrictive laws, but regulation can be much more than that. And similarly, in terms of the creativity aspect and innovation aspect and how it changes the overall approach to scientific inquiry, there has to be some kind of self-regulation there. So when we talk about regulation at that individual level, how we use the technology, how we sort of provide some kind of guidelines to ourselves about our ethical subscriptions and how we connect and align to our own values and then embed those within a broader regulatory framework. If we're not careful, I think there can be an over-reliance on technology, but the same is or can be said of any technology, right? And its effect on well-being and so many other aspects of how we engage with skills. It's a great question. They're all great questions. I think they require much more time to unpack.
That's definitely right. Yes. So yeah, we could talk about this. We could discuss about this all day long. I'm sorry, but we have to wrap this event up. Let me just share my slides again. So we did have Q&A session, and yes, so here I just I wanted to ask you. So I think Eva just popped the link to the feedback survey in the chat. So please don't forget to answer the feedback survey. I think it will take you less than 3 minutes to answer. So please take some time to answer the survey. It helps us, plan for our future events. It helps us improve our event. So your feedback it's really important. So closing remarks, I'd like to say a few thank you. So first, obviously, I'm going to thank the panelists for the great discussion. Thank you again for taking the time to be here with us with your thank you for your insights, your contribution to this event. Thank you to the WREN committee who made this event possible. It's always a pleasure to work with you all. Thank you to all of you who joined our event today. So a special thank you for those of you who engaged in the discussion via the chat. Apologies, we couldn't answer your question. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, and we could, as I said, we could discuss about this for many, many hours. Stay tuned for our next events. So if you want to know about them, follow us on our socials. We are very active on our socials, and you'll learn firsthand about our events, about the things that we are organizing. Thanks again, everyone. I hope you have a lovely rest of the day. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next time.
Thank you.